So I'd like to first bring on Dr. Mark Stephenson.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. I just want to thank both Joe and Sophia for inviting me to this. I'm humbled to be in a room with a lot of smart people. I'm not one of them, but I do have a lot of experience with that. As Joe said, the majority of my tactical experience has been with SOCOM and Naval Special Warfare Development Group. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today is based on some of the work that was done there and what we've learned and how to move it forward. What I want to do, the first part of my presentation, I'll go through real quick because most of it was covered yesterday. So we don't need to rehash, the ANS system and allostatic load, but that's the premise of what we're going after, right? Stress. So a lot of the work that I do is studying stress under pressure, right? So how does performance, how can someone perform better, more accurately, quickly, things like that, versus chronic stress. However, you can't look at acute stress and look at strategies if you don't understand and mitigate the chronic stress. So fortunately for me, I'm going to go through a couple of this because that was all done yesterday. Actually, I'll go back one up here, leave this up here. But fortunately for me, at Development Group, we were able to interact with other institutes. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Air Force Research Lab out in Dayton, Ohio, their Human Performance Wing. We've done a lot of work, and SOCOM has done a lot of work with that lab. And so, a lot of stuff that we've done is with their help. But, what we looked at, I was brought on and I had a specific tasker from the commanding officer. And that was not about getting the guys fit, strength and conditioning, that's all part of it. But it's about how do we sustain our warfighters for the next mission over and over again. So this was back in the mid 2000s, the height of the war. So with that, we started looking at a lot of things. Now at Development Group, our guys were fit. So, and I don't want to say that special operators are all fit because they're not, right? There's varying degrees. But when we get to some of the higher levels, that's not our main concern because most of them, if not all of them, are fit. It's keeping them healthy. They're hurt. They might be injured, rehabbing, things like that. But how do we sustain that over and over again? So we looked at a lot of things. And of course, now we're, at the end of the day, it's a brain first approach, right? So when we looked at it, it's like, okay, where are we making our gains? And a lot of that is, how are we affecting and resetting this ANS so we can go again at a high level optimally and so forth. So we looked at a lot of different things with that. And bottom line is we came down to recovery. And what I mean by recovery is different modalities to recover. So we'll talk a little bit about a few of them, and there are many out there. But what I want you to look at for here is, so when we look at the load, all right, this is what we look at for recovery. Our systematic approach to it is, what's the load? So we have training load. Okay, so if we're strength coaches, we know, hey, this is our load, our volume for the day. But then we discount maybe practice, or if we add that in, we discount the 6-month-old baby crying in the middle of the night that they had to get up for, all right, or the fight that they had in, or somebody cut them off on the highway and road rage. So that's, again, now back to the allostatic load. So our total load, our allostatic load of that individual is relevant to the amount of recovery they have. So if we can recover, we can decrease that load, right? Say eliminate, but decrease that load. So again, what's our objective? Buying down the risk, right? We're not going to eliminate. Listen, there's no injury prevention. It's injury mitigation, right? Being a soldier is not healthy. Being an athlete is not healthy, right? But how can we make it better? How can we mitigate or buy down our risk of injury, illness, and disease? So So I'm gonna throw out, and some of you, and I know a bunch of you in the audience, you probably heard this many times, so I apologize, but think of it as I call the ATM theory. Recovery is our currency. So when you're 18, you got a big bank account now, right? So now every time you go out, drink, party, train, whatever, you're taking money out of the ATM. But what happens when you're 25 is you never made a deposit. So now you're bankrupt. All right. So when we start working with our operators, we educate them this way. It's like, hey, you can do what you want, but you got to pay the piper. So now you got to make your deposits. So if we're looking at like, hey, the average time in bed or sleep for an operator is 4 hours. The average day is this, whatever. We have to take that into account. That's not going to change under most circumstances when we don't have control. But if we make our deposits, we can keep our bank account in the positive. So think of it that way. Think of it as if I'm going to work out heavy, I'm going to recover whatever that is. It could be rest. If it's a high training day, and we'll say training as in tactical training, getting geared up for mission. It could be, different skill sets that you have to do. All those add up. It could be admin work. All right. You had to brief, the higher ups and things like that. That's stressful. That's part of the load. So what are we doing to mitigate that? So, and again, group 10 said it over there is, one of the objectives, like, okay, how do we account for that? How can we monitor that? So, can we create a matrix like if this, then that, this is the recovery you should be doing. And again, there's different types of recovery. So talk a little bit about that. So some of the key aspects when we're looking at recovery is, basically 3 things: repair, replenish, and recover. Okay. Or you can say rejuvenate, but in any case, this is what we're trying to do. So we need to repair. When does that happen? When does our normal tissue repair occur? Right. Deep sleep, slow wave sleep. Right. So you can have 8 hours in bed and don't have enough delta. The quality is not there, or enough REM. So it's not just sleep. It's not just time in bed, but it's quality of sleep. Okay. So those things are important. So when we look at that, in order for us to get to this point, we have to be able to, sleep's going to be the ultimate. But it's not just easy to say, hey, you need more sleep. And then we come to the question, is the overtraining, the chronic stress causing you not to sleep, or you not sleeping enough causing that, right? So we're always playing with those questions. So I'm going to talk about 3 main modalities. And there are many others. There are some that are, up and coming that show a lot of promise. So this is not exclusive by any means, but this is where we started. This is kind of where we're at. But I want to preference, as I talk through these things, there are more research that needs to be done. There's not enough research on any of them. Float has the most right now, but there's more research needs to be done on how it's effective. Anecdotally, it's very effective, but we need to prove that. So first thing I talk about is float. How many people have heard of floating? All right. So I want to say 2010-ish, 11-ish, I had an operator come to me, a senior chief, said, you know what? And, he was part of the working group of exploring what do we need to do. And we came to, we got to figure out a way to recover better, more so than just putting Normatex on, things like that, or jumping in the ice bath. What can we do better? So he's like, when I was in Buzz way back when, because he was an older guy, and he's like, there's a float tank. It was like a coffin out in town. I used to do that, and that helped me get through Buzz. We should look at that. I look up a little bit. I'm like, well, this is bull crap. And I'm like, and of course, if that command, it doesn't matter. You got to do what they do. But my job was to do that, vet out these things. This is my job. I said, all right, we'll look at it. I said, and then I had him make some promises to me to do that. So we get it in, and lo and behold, we have guys saying, hey, you know what? I slept 6 hours last night. Hey, I slept a little of this. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is working. but why? And that's where we started exploring research and why is it working? And we found a couple of things, and some of it is we are seeing that we are getting slow brain activities, right? So theta, delta, but we haven't explored it fully, and it took us a while to get here. And one of the reasons is how do you measure EEG in water, right? There's not a lot of technology out there. DARPA did commission a project that made a specific device for us to do that, and it worked great. One flaw. It was tight, so it was uncomfortable. So that disrupts the whole reason for being there. So it really didn't work for us. But now there are some devices where we can get, at least prefrontal cortex, things like that, ways to use, tegaderm to, insulate and things like that. We can get ECG easily in there because we can protect that. So we're starting to look at these things, and this is great. This is probably the best thing out there, whether you're chronically stressed or just acutely stressed, whatever your off balance is, high parasympathetic, high sympathetic, this will get you in balance. We're seeing that in the research. And a lot of it's done with anxiety and things like that out at Tulsa, at the Laureate Brain Research Institute out there, Dr. Justin Feinstein, which is all great. And we were seeing that in the community, and some of the other SOCOM communities were seeing that. The problem is it's not convenient. It's a minute of 90 minutes of your time, because you got to shower before you get in. You got to get in, and it's very thick salt, right? It's a high salinity salt. So then you have to shower afterwards. If you have hair, not like me, but if you have hair, then you got to wash all that salt out. And so it's not convenient. It's very difficult to get downrange. All right. How do you maintain it? And nowadays, the tanks and the filtration system easy to maintain. But when we did it, it was like one staff person, full-time job trying to maintain those. So it was very difficult. But the goal here, not even close to it, is if we can understand what's going on in this system, the body, the brain, can we recreate a technology outside of that does the same thing that we don't need this? Maybe it's a patch, maybe it's whatever. I don't know what it is yet, because that's what we're exploring. I say we as a collective, people at AFRL still working on this as well. So we've been at this for a long time on many of these devices. But what I can say is this one is the most promising. We just got to figure out how to make it practical.
Was there a dose or a frequency that you found to be most useful?
So really, it's 2 to 3 times is sufficient, and 45 minutes to an hour. Now, I've had some guys that were experienced floaters, as we call them. I have one guy, 3 hours. He'll go in there twice a week. It's like, okay. But we haven't seen anything in the literature or any of preliminary studies that showed that more is better. What it's really coming out of 45 to 60 minutes is probably going to be a good dosage that can sustain you. And when we say sustain, it's only been in the literature up to 6 months without intervention, maintaining those same qualities. And again, anxiety and depression are the main areas that were researched, and they showed a lot of that. So, but very promising. But again, not convenient. Can't get downrange.
Or dry float tanks.
So it's different, and we're exploring that. It is effective, but it is not as effective. And one of the reasons is you're something's touching your body. So now we have brain calculations going on, right? So we have to have more brain power. So it's all about how many what are our resources? So looking at that, but it is effective. So we don't discount dry floating. But again, get it downrange, get it in the back of the C-17, not as easy. Right? Photobiomodulation. So I do a lot of work in the whole body and more on performance based, but that's that near infrared light spectrum that's affecting the cell, right? Repairing the mitochondria. We've seen a lot of promise in this. So there's been a lot of work in rodents, and now a lot of work on the human, but on the brain. So Dr. Paulo Casano from Mass General Hospital has been doing a lot of work on PBM for the brain. So we're hoping to get a funded study here shortly to do more work on the brain with PBM. But there's been a lot of promise with this. we've seen in the community, in the medical community, a lot of like chronic fatigue syndrome, some other degenerative diseases that they're getting a lot of effect, not curing, but decreasing the symptoms of it, increasing quality of life for those patients. But cognitive recovery, we don't know yet. Maybe from a injury, TBI or RBBI, but does it improve cognitive processing, cognitive performance? We don't know yet. A lot of work needs to be done in that area. Then you have transcranial PBM, which I just spoke a little bit more about. That's where we think we might be able to get a little bit dialed in. But one thing we want to look at is actually performance in this with a non-TBI brain or a non-RBBI brain, as well as TBI or RBBI brain. So whole body cryosimulation, and I'm going a little quick here because I'm going to pass my time. But this is an area that's a lot of work still needs to be done here. But think of it, we talked about the HPA axis. So what we think is happening based on what we've seen anecdotally and just by accident is that we're resetting that HPA axis, that one that's under stress. So, you know, with blood work, endocrine work, we had some individuals that were just happened to be getting that done anyway, and they were using this, recreationally, meaning at will, voluntarily. But we were recording everything. That was the deal. You could use it, but you needed to record it so we could see what's going on. And their blood work was improving, including some of their endocrine panels. So more work to be done there. We're trying to get some juice behind getting a couple of funded studies for that as well. But we do have one group in Mass General Hospital psychiatry group looking at it for extreme cold exposure for depression. And the pilot study is going to start probably in the next couple of weeks on that. So those are the main points that I want to get to. But remember, it's about the total load. And I know you all know this, but it's understanding, even the people you work with, the HP folks on your team understand it's not just the fitness part of it or the, or what they're doing in their training. It's everything, the daily life. Hard to account for, but we need to account for it. And that's hopefully where technology can help us out. With that, I'll yield to you guys.